You believe your ache is noble, that your bleeding heart is a badge of holiness. But what if I told you that what pulses in your chest is not always love, but longing, cloaked in ritual, that your empathy, though exquisite in its tenderness, may at times be the residue of an old enchantment, a ghost spell cast in the shadows of childhood where you learn to equate self-sacrifice with safety and martyrdom with meaning. Before we begin, take a moment to like and subscribe. The more you engage and stay with the content, the more YouTube shares these timeless insights with others. By doing so, you're not only helping this channel grow, but also spreading Carl Jung's transformative wisdom to those seeking meaning and inner truth. Let's dive into the depth of the psyche together. You call it love when your body tightens at the suffering of others, when your spirit spills like milk into their wounds. But empathy, untethered from awareness, becomes possession. And possession wears many faces, not only those of demons, but of ancestors, unmet needs, archetypes left to wander the psyche without guardianship. You are not always being moved by kindness. Sometimes you are being moved by the ghost of the abandoned child within you, still searching for the parent who never saw them. There is a hunger behind your giving, one that dares not speak its name. It whispers, "If I hold their pain long enough, maybe they will hold mine." But the unconscious does not barter, it only repeats. And so you find yourself endlessly drawn to those who mirror your original wound, the unavailable, the consuming, the ones who take and forget to ask if you have anything left to give. This is not love. This is the reenactment of an old myth, one where your worth depends on your vanishing. You become the nurse in the bleeding hospital of dreams, tending to faceless suffering until your own eyes dissolve. Until the voice comes not divine, but distorted. You can only save them if you disappear, but the soul does not seek to disappear. It seeks to become, and becoming cannot take root in soil that denies its own presence. Empathy, when fused with shadow, is not compassion, it is enmeshment. It is the loss of self beneath the weight of another's sorrow. You do not heal them. You bleed for them. And in that bleeding, you vanish just as you were taught. Many empaths were forged in the furnace of emotional survival. Their sensitivity, like a flame held too long, became a tool of self-erasure. As children, they became the seers, the readers of moods, the weather vanes of chaos. To survive, they learn to disappear into the needs of others. But adaptation is not identity, and the soul eventually rebels. The narcissist and the empath are not merely unlucky lovers. They are archetypal twins in the tragedy of unhealed wounding. One devours, the other dissolves. One demands, the other offers until empty. And yet they circle each other like planets drawn by a gravity too ancient to question. This is not destiny, it is the unconscious playing out a script written long ago, with roles assigned by ghosts. You do not fall in love, you fall into pattern. And pattern, when unconscious, does not release you. It binds you in a story that cannot end until you awaken, until you say, "I will no longer disappear to be loved." Love does not require your erasure. It does not ask for your annihilation as proof. Love does not demand your wholeness be broken into pieces and offered at the altar of another's dysfunction. That is not love. That is the complex speaking. That is the part of your psyche still stuck in the echo chamber of childhood, where love was confused with compliance. The shadow of the empath is not rage, it is hunger. A hunger to be seen, to be chosen, to be safe. And so they give, not from abundance, but from desperation. And they call it divine. But there is nothing divine in the denial of self. The soul, like the moon, must be seen in full cycle, not just the crescent of giving, but the dark face of boundary, of saying no, of choosing to stay whole rather than half-loved. The pattern will whisper, "If you love them enough, They will change. But healing does not come from overextending. It comes from returning. Returning to the self you abandoned to care for others. Returning to the voice that trembled in childhood and said, "But what about me?" There is a sacred difference between compassion and collapse, between attunement and absorption, between love and fusion. To heal, you must learn to hold your empathy like a chalice, not a sponge, a vessel, not a vacuum. You are not here to disappear. You are here to exist in full truth, full presence, full sovereignty. I have seen the possessed walk this earth in the clothing of kindness. I have seen the hollowed hearts of those who gave too much and asked for nothing. And I have seen them, finally, rise, not as saints, but as sovereigns. They stopped waiting to be chosen. They chose themselves. So if these words echo in your body, if you feel the ghost stirring, if your hands tremble with recognition, know this: the time has come to write a new myth. One where the empath does not vanish into the wound, but becomes the healer who includes herself in the healing, who names the pattern and then refuses to follow it, who loves but not at the expense of soul. And now, I offer you a ritual invitation, one not of transaction, but of transformation. Go within and choose a number that feels like your reflection in this mirror of words. Is it 2 for the sacred dance between self and other? Is it 8, the eternal loop of karma and rebirth? Is it 11, the gateway between the seen and the unseen? Is it 22, the master builder who reconstructs their soul from fractured ruins? Do not pick with logic. Let the number arrive like a feather on water. Whisper it into the comments below, like an offering to the collective dream. Let it be your silent vow that you will no longer bleed to feel alive, that you will no longer serve the ghosts that drain you, that your empathy will now walk beside your power, not in place of it. This is the moment, the turning, the right of return, not to who you were, but to who you were. Before the pattern, the one who was never broken, only hidden, and we, the others walking this path, will recognize you by your number. We will nod across the dream field and say, "Ah yes, another one has awakened." But you cannot force the past to love you. You cannot rewrite your origin story through others. The only path to liberation is through the integration of the shadow, through the brave descent into the underworld of your own psyche, where the child still waits in the corner, eyes wide, asking, "Why did no one see me?" And perhaps now you can finally answer. This is the alchemical journey, the transmutation of suffering into wisdom, the passage through the inner death, required to reclaim your soul from the archetypes that have possessed it. Do not mistake this for spiritual sentimentality. This is the work of blood and bone. It is not poetic. It is crucifying. To break the pattern, you must first name it. You must dare to see how your empathy has become a shield behind which your own needs hide. You must look into the mirror and ask, "What do I get from being the one who always gives?" And you will see, behind the generosity, a hidden contract. If I am good enough, maybe I will finally be loved. But you do not need to earn love. You need to remember it. And love, real love, is not a transaction. It is a recognition. And that recognition must begin with yourself. Do not confuse spiritual martyrdom with maturity. True spiritual growth is not in how much you can endure, but in how much truth you can hold. And the truth is this: sometimes your empathy is not a gift. Sometimes it is a wound begging for attention, and unless you tend to it, it will continue to recreate relationships that mirror your original abandonment. The psyche is a mirror whole. Every person you attract is a reflection of some part of you, not in the superficial sense, but in the symbolic. The narcissist reflects your disowned entitlement. The wounded one reflects your denied helplessness. The taker reflects your own fear of asking. And in seeing this, not with judgment, but with curiosity, you begin the sacred task of individuation, the process of becoming whole. The world does not need more empaths who sacrifice themselves. The world needs more whole people. People who can feel without fusing, who can care without collapsing, who can love without losing themselves. And this wholeness comes not from more empathy, but from more integrity, from the integration of your shadow, your wounds, your desire, your rage, your shame for what you do not own will own you. And the patterns you do not confront will continue to write your life like a ghost author, hidden behind every chapter. You must no longer let these patterns speak in the name of love. You must learn to love in the name of truth. The moment you begin to see the pattern, the possession weakens. But beware, your psyche will resist. It will cry out in protest. For the identity you have constructed as the empath, the giver, the gentle healer has become a mask fused to your very flesh. To remove it feels like death, and in some sense, it is. You are not just letting go of a role. You are letting go of the fantasy. It upheld the belief that if you are soft enough, kind enough, selfless enough, you will be chosen, seen, adored, kept. But you must grieve the truth. No amount of goodness could have saved you from the emotional abandonment that shaped you. That was never your fault. It was never your job to earn love. But your psyche, in its innocence and brilliance, believed otherwise. It cast you in the role of the empath so that you could survive. This is the tragedy and the genius of the unconscious. It creates roles not for truth, but for protection. But what protects you in childhood can imprison you in adulthood. The empath mask, so praised by society, so idolized in spiritual circles, is often the veil behind which deep wounds bleed silently. And now you stand at the threshold. The veil is lifting. You see that the love you gave was too often a cry disguised as a gift. "Take my care," you whispered, and in return, "Hold me." But they didn't. They never could, because your giving was not clean. It was laced with the pain of your past. And pain, when it seeks salvation through others, cannot create love. It can only recreate the wound. This is the moment when many turn back, when the realization feels too heavy, too sorrowful. But if you endure, if you allow yourself to descend deeper, you will find the core wound, not the narrative, not the behaviors, but the primal moment. The first time you felt that your feelings were too much, that your needs were a burden, that your essence was inconvenient. That was the moment the pattern was born. And in that moment, you split. One part of you carried the truth, the pain, the rage, the unmet needs. And the other part became the persona, the false self-shape to please, to placate, to protect. The empath is often born from this split. The persona is not evil. It is a psychic adaptation, but it is not you. It is who you thought you had to be to receive love. And now, as an adult, you continue to seek relationships where this false self feels familiar. Relationships where you are needed, but not seen, but not held. You call it love, but it is recognition of the wound. You are drawn not to who they are, but to what they activate. You are not falling in love. You are falling into pattern. The narcissist does not love you. They recognize your mask, and you, theirs. It is a silent agreement. I will play the healer if you play the broken. I will be the giver if you be the void. This is not intimacy. This is enmeshment, trauma, dancing with trauma. And unless you awaken to the pattern, you will call it destiny. You will write poetry about your sorrow. You will spiritualize your pain. But the soul cannot be deceived. It knows the difference between love and reenactment. And it will ache not because of what was done. It will ache because of what was done to you, but because of what you continue to do to yourself. Empathy without boundaries is self-abandonment. Compassion without discernment is self-betrayal. And love without sovereignty is not love. It is fusion, and fusion is the death of the self. To free yourself, you must go where most do not dare, to the underworld of your own psyche. There, in the labyrinth of memory, you will meet the parts of you that never healed. The child who silenced her voice to avoid punishment. The boy who became invisible so his father wouldn't lash out. The teenager who gave her body, hoping someone would finally see her soul. These are not memories. They are living archetypes, and they are still speaking through your actions today. You cannot heal what you refuse to see. You cannot love others truly until you love the parts of yourself you were taught to hate. Your neediness, your anger, your grief, your hunger, your darkness. These are not flaws. These are the parts of you exiled during the original trauma, and until they are welcomed back, they will sabotage every relationship you enter, not because they are evil, but because they are desperate. This is the shadow's language, not words, but sabotage. It does not speak clearly. It manifests in patterns, in partners, in illnesses, in dreams. It will bring you to your knees until you finally turn inward and ask, "What am I refusing to feel?" Do not seek to transcend your wounds. That is spiritual bypassing. Seek instead to descend into them, to hold them with reverence, to let them speak. For the wound is not the enemy. The denial of the wound is your empathy must be reclaimed from the realm of martyrdom. You are not here to save others. You are here to become whole. Only then can you love from a place of freedom, not fear. Only then can you care without collapsing. Only then can you give without disappearing. You must understand the soul is not seeking harmony. It is seeking integration. Harmony is a product of social conditioning. Integration is a product of psychic truth. And truth is rarely solved. It cuts. It reveals. It destroys. Illusion. But it also liberates. Let me tell you another dream. A man dreams. He is in a desert, traveling. Behind him 1,000 shadows. Follow some weeping, some snarling, some whispering his name. He tries to outrun them, but the faster he runs, the louder they scream. Finally, exhausted, he turns to face them, and in that moment, the shadows become light. This is the work you must turn. You must stop running from your own pain, your own unmet longing, your own inner chaos. And when you do, you will find that what you feared most was not your darkness, but your power. The power to stop betraying yourself, because that is the secret. The empath is not weak. The empath is not fragile. The empath, when healed, is the most powerful force on this earth. Not because they feel everything, but because they know how to transform it. They become alchemists of emotion. They become mirrors for truth. But this power is only unlocked when they are no longer possessed by the need to be needed. You must let go of the savior complex. You are not here to rescue others from their pain. You are here to witness it without merging, to honor it without absorbing, to walk beside, but not within. And most importantly, you must choose yourself, again and again, not from ego, but from sacred responsibility. Because when you choose yourself, you are not abandoning others. You are showing them what self-love looks like. You are modeling wholeness. You are embodying what every wounded heart longs to see. that it is possible to be kind without being consumed, to care without being caged. The world needs more of that. Not more sacrificial lambs, not more silent things, not more poetic sufferers. The world needs more integrated souls, whole beings who have met their shadow, made peace with their wounds, and emerged not as empaths defined by pain, but as lovers defined by truth. So I ask you now, with every cell of your soul, are you willing to let the pattern die? Are you willing to love yourself enough to break the spell? Are you willing to step out of the dream of being saved and into the reality of being sovereign? If so, the work begins. And the gods will tremble, for there is nothing more dangerous to the old world than an empath who is no longer possessed, who is no longer performing love, but embodying it. And in that sacred embodiment, you will finally remember what you forgot as a child, that you are already whole, that you were never too much, that your love is not a currency, but a current, a river, flowing from the source of your unshakable truth. There is a moment in every transformation where the soul must pass through the fire, not to be destroyed, but to be revealed. What remains after the burning is not weakness, but essence. And for the empath, this fire is not external. It is a crucible of saying, I no longer abandon myself for the sake of connection. When you declare this truth, not with anger, but with calm rootedness, you send a shockwave through every pattern that once owned you. The complex loses its grip. The old roles tremble, the shadows scatter, not because they have been exercised, but because they have been seen. And there is no greater force in the psyche than the eye that finally sees itself. Do not underestimate what this seeing demands. It is not a mere shift in thought. It is a collapse, a death of identity, a relinquishment of the story that you were only valuable when in pain, only lovable when giving, only worthy when needed. The ego does not go gently into this surrender. It screams. It clings to the image. It worked so hard to create the image of the good one, the helper, the peaceful one, the light. But what if I told you that your light is not found in denial of your darkness, but in your willingness to carry it with dignity? The healed empath does not shine because they are untouched by shadow. They shine because they have become its steward. They no longer fear their rage. They no longer shame their boundaries. They no longer apologize for needing space. Their empathy is no longer a bleeding wound. It is a sacred channel, clean, clear, honest. It is in this space that true love becomes possible for the first time. Love is not given as a plea for safety. It is offered as a reflection of inner fullness. It is not entangled with the need to be validated, rescued, or seen. It is not confused with fusion. It respects the other soul because it finally respects its own. And now you begin to understand the deeper truth. The empath was never meant to be a martyr. The empath was meant to be an oracle, a bridge between realms, a witness to the unseen. But that gift was corrupted by trauma. Your sight was turned inward, not to see truth, but to scan for danger. Your sensitivity became hypervigilance. Your caring became control. Not because you are manipulative, but because as a child, you learned that if you didn't manage others' emotions, you would not be safe. This is the great inversion that trauma creates. It makes survival feel like virtue. But there is no virtue in self-erasure. There is only forgetting the soul. However, never forgets. And that is why it aches. That is why you feel the haunting in your chest. The sense that something vital is missing. It is not love you lack. It is you. You abandoned yourself so long ago. And now you chase reflections in others, hoping to retrieve the pieces. But no one can give you what you lost when you first silenced your truth to belong. This is why your relationships feel exhausting. You are not just connecting. You are searching. And the other can feel it. They may not name it, but they sense the hunger behind your giving, the ache beneath your softness. It is too much. It asks too much. Because it is not clean. It is not whole. It is the child still begging to be seen. To heal this, you must stop begging. You must become the one who sees. You must look in the mirror, not to perfect yourself, but to finally witness the original wound with compassion. Yes, you were neglected. Yes, you were unseen. Yes, you were required to perform, to earn, to shrink, to serve. But that was then, and now you have a choice. You can remain possessed by the past, or you can initiate yourself into a new reality, one where you are no longer defined by your capacity to endure, one where your worth is not measured by your usefulness, one where your empathy is not a mask, but a medicine. But to hold that medicine, you must become a vessel strong enough to contain it. And that strength comes not from perfection, but from integration. Integration means you no longer exile any part of yourself. You bring your rage to the table and ask what it wants to say. You invite your envy to speak its need. You welcome your jealousy, your fear, your grief, not to indulge them, but to understand their roots. You see, every emotion is a messenger, every symptom a signpost, and the empath, when awakened, becomes an interpreter of these inner signals. No longer distracted by other storms, they learn to read the weather within. This is the turning point. You are no longer a sponge for the world's pain. You are a sovereign field. You feel, but you do not drown. You listen, but you do not lose yourself. And in this new stance, something profound emerges. Discernment. You begin to see who is truly asking for love and who is asking for a host. You begin to feel the difference between resonance and responsibility, between connection and captivity. You no longer need to save anyone. You no longer believe that your suffering redeems others. You see now that to serve the world, you must first be rooted in your own truth. Otherwise, your service is contaminated with need. This is not selfishness. This is sacred alignment. Imagine a tree that gives all its fruit, all its sap, all its branches, just to please the forest. Soon it is bare, sick, hollow, and the forest does not thank it, because the forest needs healthy trees, not martyrs. So too does the world need you in your wholeness, not in your depletion. And you, dear empath, are not here to prove anything anymore. Not to your parents, not to your partners, not to the ghosts that still whisper you are only lovable when you serve. You are lovable because you exist. You are worthy because you are. There is nothing to earn, only something to reclaim. And that reclamation begins with a single choice to stop explaining your worth, to stop defending your boundaries, to stop justifying your no, because every time you betray yourself to avoid conflict, you confirm the lie that your needs are dangerous. And they are not. Your needs are holy. Your no is sacred. Your anger is instructive. Your body is wise. And your love, when it comes from truth, not trauma, is the most healing force on earth. But it must begin with you. Let the pattern fall. Let the performance crumble. Let the identity of the empath or savior dissolve. Bury it with reverence. It kept you alive, but now it keeps you from living. Step out from behind the mask. Let the world meet the real you, the one who feels deeply but no longer pleads for belonging, the one who holds space but no longer abandons themselves, the one who gives but never at the cost of their soul. This is the new empath. Not possessed by patterns, but protected by truth. Not seeking safety in others, but finding it within. Not performing love, but becoming it. And in that becoming, you will finally taste the peace that eluded you your entire life. Not because the world changed, but because you stopped sacrificing yourself to fix it. You stopped becoming less to be loved more. You stopped wearing your pain as a crown, and in its place, you found something greater than empathy. You found sovereignty. The final threshold in this journey is the hardest to cross, not because it is the most painful, but because it is the most unfamiliar. You are no longer held hostage by others' suffering, no longer defined by your roles, no longer moved by guilt, masquerading as virtue. And yet, a question remains. Who am I, if not the one who feels for everyone? This is the void, the sacred silence, that emerges after the pattern collapses. Here, the echo of your old identity fades, but the new one has not yet taken form. You feel naked, disoriented, as if walking without skin, and this is good. This is necessary. For only in emptiness can the soul speak clearly. Do not rush to fill this void. Do not reconstruct another role to replace the last. Instead, sit with it. Listen. What arises in you when you are no longer needed? What do you feel when your value is not measured by your empathy? Do you feel terror, rage, a chilling loneliness? These are the final remnants of the original abandonment, the final cries of the inner child who believed that if she was not useful, she would be forgotten. Hold her. Let her wail. Let her grieve not only the love she lost, but the self she gave up to chase it. And as you hold her, something remarkable happens. Your empathy begins to turn inward. You begin to feel for yourself, not in self-pity, but in self-recognition. You become the parent you never had, the witness you always longed for. You cradle the parts of you that once wandered the world, asking to be seen, and you say, I see you. You never had to prove your worth. This is a reparenting. This is a rebirth. And from this rebirth, a new form of empathy is born, not reactive, not compulsive, not enmeshed, but luminous, clean, potent. It becomes less about others and more about truth, less about harmony and more about alignment. You no longer run into every burning building to rescue someone who never asked. You no longer interpret others' chaos as your invitation. You no longer shapeshift to avoid disappointment. Instead, you move from presence. You offer your energy like a sacred fire, available to warm, never to consume. And this fire, when rooted in wholeness, becomes a beacon. It draws not the wounded seeking to be saved, but the sovereign seeking to connect. The healed empaths no longer attract vampires. They attract mirrors. Those who have done their own shadow work. Those who do not fear intensity. Those who understand that love is not rescue, but resonance. Not sacrifice, but synergy. This is the relational field you were born for, not the trauma bond, but the soul bond, and you enter it only when you no longer seek to complete yourself through the other. It is ironic, is it not? The moment you stop needing, you become magnetic. The moment you stop overgiving, you overflow. The moment you choose yourself, others begin to choose you, not because you're performing, but because you are real. And this reality is a grounded, embodied presence of a once wounded soul. Now, whole is what the world has long awaited. We do not need more wounded healers. We need healed ones. Not perfect, but present. Not saviors, but initiates. And you, dear listener, have now been initiated. You have seen the pattern. You have felt the possession. You have faced the mirror. You have sat in the fire. And now you rise. not as the empress who gives everything, but as the soul who knows what they are here to give, not because they must, but because they choose to, with discernment, with joy, with full-bodied yes and sacred no. This is the empath reborn, not a sponge, but a prism, not a servant of guilt, but a steward of clarity, not a victim of patterns, but a sculptor of presence. You now walk as one who knows the cost of abandoning themselves and who will never pay that price again. So, if the pattern returns, as it sometimes will, if you feel the urge to overextend, to absorb, to merge, pause, ask, is this love? Or is this memory looking for a stage? If it is love, it will feel expansive. If it is memory, it will feel heavy. If it is truth, it will ask for your wholeness. If it is trauma, it will ask for your sacrifice. You now know the difference, and you are allowed to choose. You are allowed to say no. Even when you used to say yes, you are allowed to walk away. Even when you used to stay, you are allowed to disappoint others. If it means being loyal to yourself, you are allowed to be seen in your entirety. Not just your light, but your edges. Not just your softness, but your fire. Because love, real love, includes all of you. And that, in the end, is the most radical act of all. To include all of yourself, to make a home for your pain, your power, your passion, your peace. To no longer wait for permission, to no longer need to be understood, to be worthy. To no longer confuse empathy with erasure. This is your return, not to who you were, but to who you have always been beneath the mask. Empathy is no longer your armor. It is your instrument. Play it wisely. Let it sing. Not from desperation, but from depth. Let it guide. Not from fear, but from freedom. Let it open. Not to be filled, but to be shared. And if ever you forget, if the old patterns whisper their siren song, remember this: you were never here to be consumed. You were here to remember. You are the flame, and flames do not chase, they burn with truth. And truth, dear empath, is the greatest protection of all. Now rise and walk as the one who remembers.